became flesh and dwelt among us, full of grace and truth. Let your word dwell within us. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Amen. Grace and peace to you this morning. Grace and peace. I was riding with somebody through the hills here on North Country Road, and you ever notice how some people just don't dim their headlights? And some headlights, even dim, look bright enough. It's like daylight. The person I was riding with said, you know what? That's it. I am tired of no one dimming their lights. I am going to not dim mine. And I said, are you out of your mind? There's a good chance you're going to cause twice the accident that way. That's not my sermon illustration. That's from a sermon from 1957 from Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. His example of why we don't do what everyone else is doing. Because it may cause more problems than we know what to do with. We celebrate Dr. King in ways that he was never celebrated in his life or even at his death. When he was assassinated, he was one of the least liked people in our country. Opinions of him were awful because he wanted to change things. And the way he wanted to change things, though, was a very particular way, a way that he learned from the Gospels and a way that he learned from Gandhi. He wanted to change it by causing trouble, but not violence. What that meant was he got in trouble with those who don't want things changed. And a lot of people don't want things changed. We all have some investment in the status quo. He also got in trouble with those who wanted things changed faster or by any means necessary. But he chose a different route. And that route required moral courage. We all know what Rosa Parks did, right? Pop quiz, what'd she do? She sat on the bus. But that's not where she started. She started helping people document instances of institutional racism and difficulties that they had. She started with a lot of training and a lot of prayer and a lot of singing and a lot of church. You don't have the moral courage to be the one to sit there on the bus and break the law because you happened to wake up that day and the coffee was really good. You have the moral courage because you have day after day worked to change systems that don't work. And so we have our passage today that sure sounds like be a doormat. Turn the other cheek. I'm reminded of the funnier definitions of judo and jujitsu. It's the gentle art of folding clothes while somebody else is still in them. And of course the joke is turn the other cheek. It doesn't have to be yours. You can turn theirs. But turn the other cheek. Go the extra mile. Silver Bay YMCA Conference Center. Back in college, I was a dish dog. I worked in the dishwashing room for the cafeteria. And Silver Bay had this lovely thing. It was called the second mile spirit. So if you went above and beyond your job and you did great things for the guests or for the camp, you got a second mile award, which I believe was a Frisbee. This was college. That was cool. That's not what this is. If someone forces you to go a mile, go the second mile. Got to read all the words. What's the other one? Someone sues you for your coat. Give them your cloak as well. I need a volunteer. But I need an ironic volunteer. So I'm wondering if I can voluntold Sue Hoff to help me. If I could invite you to come up here. I request that you not actually strike me.
I thought you were going to strike me.
I like my job. Sunday, pastor versus moderator. No. So, first of all, anybody here know Latin? Nobody fesses up to that. All right. Right hand. Dexter. Anybody here ambidextrous? Literally means you have two right hands. Ambidextrous. Left. Sinister. Very good. Or as I tell my confirmands, you have two hands. You use one for eating, one for wiping. That's all I have to say about that. Everyone's right-handed. Some of you grew up if you were left-handed, they forced you to right-handed. This was a little further than that. So, if your right hand, and what does it say? If they go to strike you on which cheek? Right. The right cheek. Which one is my right cheek? You go to strike my... How would you do it?
I do it with my left hand.
No, you have to be right-handed. Backhand, yes! I love the fact that she does not know how to slap people backhanded. Praise God. Anybody ever had a backhanded compliment? Well, that certainly wasn't your worst sermon. You go to strike me on my right cheek, boom. This is how you strike inferiors. This is how you strike slaves or servants, backhanded. And you go and turn your other cheek also. You're not going to want to strike me backhanded now because I have teeth. You got to strike me forehand, which tells everybody watching we're equals. Whoa, this is not doormat theology. This is not just take the hit. If you want to hit me, I'm going to make it so that you show everybody out there we're equals. Thank you so much for not striking me. This part will not have any visuals. Oh. You just figured out which one it is. If I owe you money, you can sue me for my cloak. As By the way, we're only a two-garment society. Some of you are already laughing because you get the joke. You take my cloak as collateral and I give you my other garment as well. What happens? I'm naked. Do not visualize this. You will need way more therapy than you... No. By the way, it's not a sin in the Bible to be naked. It's a sin to look on someone else's nakedness. That's right, buddy. This is taking it and flipping it on its head. This is saying, sure, you have every right to demand the collateral. But you know what's going to happen? Everyone's going to see what you're doing. Stripping people naked because they owe you money. And the last one, it's not if they ask you to go the extra mile, it's if they force you to go the extra mile. Because Roman soldiers could force someone to carry their pack for a mile. And the legions They were combat engineers, so they had their weapons, and they had their armor, and they had their tents, and they had their shovels, and their picks, and everything else that they had to have. It was about 70 pounds worth of gear, and they could make someone carry it for them for a mile, but only 1 mile. Otherwise, pretty soon, you have whole farms missing people, and they're all lugging the soldiers' gear around. If someone forces you to go a mile, go the second mile also. What happens if I give you my pack and say, walk with me a mile, and after we come to the next mile marker, literally in Rome they had milestones. That's where we get words from. And now you're carrying it a second mile and I'm running after you. Give me that back. Give me that back or I'll be in trouble. And Bob the centurion comes over and says, what's going on here? Oh, he gave me his pack back at mile marker 83 and we're at mile marker 85. The soldier's in trouble, not the one carrying the pack. Jesus is not saying be a doormat and accept whatever people do to you. And I know that some people have heard these scriptures that way. And I never heard them quite that way, but somehow, I don't know, osmosis, it's in the air, it's in the water. We get this idea and we think be a doormat. That somehow standing up for ourselves is against the gospel. So either we are faithful and get run over, or we're not faithful, but we take care of ourselves. And that's wrong. What Jesus is saying is flip the situation on its head. Find a way so that no matter who is trying to push you down, no matter who is trying to demean you, no matter who is messing you up, no matter who is tripping you up, you are not anything less than a beloved child of God. And here's where Martin Luther King Jr. took it a step further in a perfectly gospel way. If someone's trying to push you down, you are nothing less than a beloved child of God, and neither are they. And that's hard. It takes moral courage to look at those on the other side of whatever it is we are on the other side of. And remember that God sends the rain and the sun on their fields too. It takes moral courage to look at situations where people are doing violent things and ask the question, how can we return to being children of God together? I think babies get it right because they're forgetful. One guy said, I have no desire to outlive my enemies. I just want to be old enough that I forget what they've done. There's another line in here that I struggle with, and maybe you do too. Be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. Perfect is a dangerous word. That's right. Perfect is a difficult word. I've never seen perfect. I've seen awesome. I've seen amazing. I've seen life-changing. I've never seen perfect. But in this case, what it is how much can you love such that the hurt someone else does, I have to say this very carefully or we go right back to doormat theology. Change the love we have. None of which says what they did is okay. This is aspirational. I'm not there yet. I'm still mad at the guy who cut me off on the way to the grocery store the other day. I carry around weird things, Somebody said that one thing in 4th grade and I still remember it. What's up with that? And yet God's love is over them and it's over us. And we have the opportunity to figure out ways to love one another and to grow that so that we have the moral courage to take on the things that this congregation takes on, like reducing gun violence, like dealing with alcoholism, like working to change the opioid crisis, like feeding the hungry. We don't do this because we're just that good. We do this because that's our calling as children of God. And it's God's love we share with one another, making possible all that we do, no matter what our differences are. Thanks be to God. Amen.